Hello, everyone. This is Michelle Guines, founder of Purpose Publishing, and we are still celebrating 100 books, 100 authors. I am delighted today because I get to introduce you or present to some and introduce to others one of our highly sought after authors, Miss Areia Cobb, all the way from Powder Springs, Georgia. Hello, Areia.
Hey, Michelle.
How you doing today?
I am good. It's been a good morning, and so I am happy to be talking to you.
I am so glad that you had the time this morning. So we're going to get right in because I know as we've been sending out the videos each week, we have been sharing with you some of what's going on with some of our authors. We're connecting you with them so that you can get some ideas, some different ways that you may be able to be innovative in even how you approach writing a book, publishing the book, marketing and promoting the book. So Areia, tell us a little bit about how you got started. How did you join or get started in your publishing journey?
Well, I wrote my first book in 2012, and prior to doing so, I'd had a conversation with my Shiro, which is my oldest sister, and she had told me that my niece had a dream about me writing a book, that it was a children's book, and I was reading it on someone's show to my son, who is the main character. And she said I couldn't get through a page without the audience oohing and awing. And so we laughed about it. And I told her, with all my unfinished works, a children's book might be one that I could actually complete. Fast forward a few months, and I was leaving work one day, and what ended up being the last page of my book dropped in my spirit. And I asked God, I said, what is that? And he said, that's your children's book. I didn't think anything about it for the next 2 days. And while praying on my way to work, it dropped in my spirit again. And I said, okay, if you want it, then give it to me. And around lunchtime that day, I pulled up Word and the book was written. I was in disbelief. And I remembered that conversation of my sister saying, when you write it, let me know. I'm going to give it to my publisher friend. And I thought that she was just talking. I didn't really think she knew a publisher. And I, of course, sent it to her. She read it, loved it, and said, well, can I send it to her? And I'm like, who? And she sent it to you. And the very next morning on my way to work, she called and was like, she loves it and wants to talk to you. And that's how our relationship began back in March of 2012.
Wow. And you know what? The time has passed so quickly because I was thinking it was a few years ago. It was 5 that we got started. That's amazing. But you know what, Areia, you did a lot of writing and stuff as a young person, right? So even before this, you've always been writing.
I have. I started writing back in 8th grade. I wrote my first poem, and it basically started as just an outlet. I was frustrated about whatever 8th graders are frustrated about, and I needed a way to get it out. And I picked up a pad and started writing, and next thing I knew, I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's a poem, and it's actually pretty good. And from there, I probably still to this day have about 4 or 5 journals that all have different things in, and I keep them. And I've actually started compiling a book of poetry because that's where I started. And I went back to notebooks that I had all the way from high school and pulled a couple out of there and have just gotten a few from over the times. And so that's a piece that's completely separate from anything else I've been doing that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? It's amazing because a lot of times people, when you think about, who you are, what you are composed of, our experiences and things like that, when you had told me, I've been writing for a long time, whether it's poetry or what have you, writing has been in you. It totally makes sense, that you then move it forward, and now you're an author, and not an author of just one book. As a matter of fact, share with people how many books you've written, how many you're working on, and because once you get the bug, it's almost like you just keep on going. That flow keeps on going.
Yes, I have actually. We have published and released 2 books. The first in 2012 was My Kind of Me. The second that we released was in 2015. It's called Real Imagination. But in between the release of My Kind of Me and Real Imagination, I wrote 4 other stories. There's the My Kind of Me series is the Langston and Friends series, but I have another series that is actually around my goddaughter, and it's called The Adventures of Kennedy Lee. I have like 3 books written in that series that I haven't even shared with you. And
Wow.
just about 3 weeks ago, I wrote the sequel to My Kind of Me, which is called The Secret Inside. My Kind of Me focuses on, it's basically from a peer advocacy standpoint, and it focuses on Langston seeing a young man who has been picked on and talking to him and making him realize that these things that everybody is picking on, he actually loves about himself. And so Langston tells them, don't worry about what other people think of you. It's about what you think of you. And so that's why the book is called My Kind of Me. I'm not doing what I'm doing for you. I didn't comb my hair for you. I didn't put on these clothes for you. I did it for me because I liked it. I liked the way it made me look, the way it made me feel. The Secret Inside comes from the different perspective. And it focuses on what's going on with the bully. Why is this person acting out? Why are they doing the things that they do? So this time Langston sees a young man who's constantly picking on other people, and he finally approaches them just to find out what's going on. Like, are you really a bad person, or is something going on with you? And as the book evolves, he finds out that there's, more than meets the eye, and not to judge a book by its cover. That book was just written a few weeks ago. I actually wrote it just probably a couple of weeks after I wrote My Kind of Me in 2012, but I had been sitting on it, and when it dropped in my spirit a few weeks ago, it actually evolved into a chapter book. So that's going to be my first chapter book that we will hopefully release sometime in the next year. And right after I finished that one, I wrote one that stars my preschool son, who is currently 3 years old, and it is called the Preston's Preschool Blues. So I think that gets us up to what, 5 or 6?
Yes, a real. Wow, look, that's more than I was even thinking. So, but that's amazing. And you know what? Kind of to your message, to your point about the message of the My Kind of Me book, and even The Secret Inside now, where you're dealing with both sides of a bullying type of situation. We see so much bullying and such going on now with young people. Every day you turn on the news, there's some incident of, a student either wanting to commit suicide or attempting. And, and a lot of times it comes back to a root cause of a bullying type of a situation. And so it's your message certainly is right on point, and in time, in a place in time where this is important for kids. You know what, as a matter of fact, you had shared with me about, you were connecting with some of the schools about even offering My Kind of Me as a way for the counseling offices to even be able to use it. Why don't you share with everybody a little bit about that, if you can? I know there may be some things you can't share, but with what you can share, please do.
It's an educational program. It's an elementary educational program called MKOM, which are the acronym for My Kind of Me, Social Emotional Learning Through Literacy. And what it does is it uses My Kind of Me as a text, and it pulls for 3 main concepts: bullying, peer advocacy, and self-efficacy. So we all know that bullying is running rampant. And unfortunately, it's not just young people. There's bullying in the workplace. There are adults who are still being bullied. I talk to people on my social media accounts every day who says, thank you for what you're doing. I was bullied. It affected me for years, or it still affects me. And so this issue may start when they're a child, but it follows them through adulthood. And so that's why I kind of focus things on the elementary level, because I want to teach children about who they are while they're young, to love themselves, to know who they are, and to respect themselves, so that they're less intimidated when someone else doesn't like something about them. So what the educational program does, it can be used from a teacher or a counselor perspective, and it's relationship building, because there are various lesson plans and activities that pull from these 3 concepts, so that they can really interact. The students can interact with each other and interact with the counselor or the teacher, and really focus in on, what do these concepts mean? Everybody knows bullying, but self-efficacy, how do I feel about myself? What do I think of me? Because that's very important, because if I know that I like something about me, then I'm less affected when someone else doesn't like something about me. I'm not saying that I won't feel some type of way about it. My feelings may be hurt, but it won't take me to the point of wanting to end my life because you didn't like the way I look.
Right.
And peer advocacy, it goes on to peer advocacy, because sometimes maybe you see someone who's not strong enough to stand up for themselves, but as a friend, you don't sit back and record it and put it on social media for everybody else to see, but you go to that person and you encourage that person to love themselves, tell them the great things that you see in them, and help build them up until they're strong enough to stand on their own 2 feet.
No, that's really good. I like that. Areia, as a matter of fact, would you mind sharing with people what made you approach the school district? Because with us, we're always talking about and even using these videos to kind of share with people. Sometimes we think that we write a book, we publish it, it's on a bookshelf or it's on Amazon and people have access to it. But there are more than one way, to approach even being able to get that book out in such a way. And I just thought it was real innovative of you to even, here it is. This book is about a message and it is sharing it with people. And how do I get it into school settings and that type of thing? You've developed a whole curriculum around this now to be able to approach the school districts. What put you in that line of thinking? What made you even consider that as an option for a way to even share the message on a more broad level?
Well, when I wrote this book, I knew that the message, one way I used to advertise it was that it was a book for children with a message for everyone. And I noticed that as I would do author visits at various schools or as I would speak at various events, I would see the impact that the book had on the children and as well as the adults. I would often leave on my way for leaving an author visit, and I have teachers or counselors come up to me and say, wait a minute, can I see that? Or you have any more available to buy? I wanted to take a few notes. I want to start using some of these concepts in my classroom. Some of the things that you said, some of the questions that you asked, they intrigued me and they lit a fire inside of me. And then I learned that another teacher who had read my book had developed a few lesson plans from it, and she uses it at the start of every school year to kind of set a precedence to say, this is what's expected in our classroom. This is how we're going to act. This is how we're going to treat one another. And I said, this is powerful. Teachers are already starting to use it. We need more teachers. If it's working for one teacher, it'll work for 2, it'll work for 3. And if we all start collaborating, we can really perfect this thing as a whole. And so I realized that my kind of me still has legs. Even though it's been out for 5 years, it still hasn't even touched the surface of what it's meant to do. And so just like the book dropped in my spirit, so did the educational program. So I started developing some concepts on my own, kind of put an outline out for it. And then I went and sat with an elementary school principal to ask their thoughts, to tell them some things I was thinking. She shared a couple of things with me. And from there, it just continued to grow. And so now I am meeting with various heads of different counties in Georgia, trying to get it implemented in schools in Georgia. And once it's implemented in one school and we continue to perfect it, I am going to continue to grow it. I've been reaching out to people all over. It's not just for Georgia, it's for the country.
Yeah, and I expect it to go all over the country. As a matter of fact, Areia, I want people to be able to get in contact with you. Share with us how people can reach you, find out more about My Kind of Me and Real Imagination and Secret Inside when it comes out. Tell them how they can reach you.
My website is areiacobb.com. That's AREIACOBB.com. You can also reach me at acbookstore.net. And on social media, please follow me at author_acbooks on Twitter. Facebook is facebook.com/author.acbooks. And also on Instagram at AC_books. So follow me on any of my social media. Reach out to me. I respond. I talk to people all the time. People will DM me on Twitter, and it's very refreshing because to know that what you're doing is making an impact. You know, every day, just because you have a book out doesn't mean every day is a good day. And sometimes we need encouragement too. And so when someone does DM me and to say that, hey, keep doing what you're doing, or you said this and it helped a lot, it helps as well.
Yeah, no, real, that's good. You know what? As a matter of fact, you had just said something about collaborating. You were collaborating. You went in, met with a principal, an elementary school teacher, you know, to get some feedback and that type of thing. And collaboration is huge. And I remember, was it last year that you had the opportunity to partner with, and one of the books was included in a box that was then featured on the Huffington Post. And I was like, wow, you know, it's just amazing, because sometimes in order to strengthen our networks, we just have to connect with other people and their networks, and then you find this wonderful synergy between the two. So talk about that. How did the whole Huffington Post thing get started? How did you get involved with that?
So what happened was my husband met one of the VJs from one of the radio stations at the gym. They started a dialogue. He realized she was a VJ. He started talking about me being an author, and she said, "Oh, bring me her books. I'd love to share them on my page." Well, from her sharing one of my books on her page, she then tagged a young lady who she knew was starting a subscription box for kids. It's called Just Like Me Box. You can go on and you can put in your child's gender and age and subscribe, and every month you get a box of books that's tailored to your child. And her focus was, she had a son, and she realized that there weren't a lot of books that had characters that looked like him, meaning books that had African American characters. And so she wanted to make these books that she was finding available to more parents. Well, she tagged this young lady in a post with my book, and from that, the young lady emailed me, told me what she was trying to do, and that she wanted to feature my kind of me in her first box. Huffington Post had actually already written a story on her about what she was doing, and from that, I was just one of the authors included in her inaugural box. So that went out this summer, and since then, Real Imagination has been in one of the boxes as well. And you know, it's a great subscription process, and you know, it leads me, like you said, to talk about the partnership. I think that so many times we think that there's not enough for everybody. And so we want to keep great opportunities to ourselves instead of share them, because we figure, well, if I share your information, then that's going to take money from me. No, that's not the case. There's enough for everyone. And when you share, you actually begin to grow your relationships. And since that partnership, I've been fortunate to meet other people who are big on literacy, and they're sharing my information on their pages. Someone reached out to me who wants to start their own book network. So she reached out to me to purchase a bulk order of books from me just a couple of weeks ago. From Twitter Connections, a organization called Crisis Go. They are a safety app for parents and students and schools to give them safety tips on all types of things. And they reached out to me and said, will you partner with us and start to provide content and tips on bullying? So my first content was just published on Crisis Go yesterday, and somehow or another, a magazine in Georgia, ATL Voyage magazine, who was a part of the bigger magazine in LA, reached out to me a few weeks ago and said, hey, we want to feature you. And so sharing is a great thing. A lot of these people, I don't even know how they're getting my information. I'm just grateful that I thought it, you know, not robbery to share my information with other people, and now it's coming back to me.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? There's a script. It's not even a scripture, but it's a quote that I picked up years ago. But it says, "A candle loses none of its shine by lighting another candle," and I have found it to be totally true. You know, and sharing, collaborating, connecting with other people is it's another way for you to extend yourself, your message, your books, products, services, what have you, with people that you would not have otherwise been able to connect with. And technology is so awesome that a lot of times you can do a lot of it from the comfort of your own home, your car,
Yes.
the kitchen, wherever you are, you can connect with people, and it's a blessing. It becomes a blessing not only to you, but to all the people who now have access to you that would not have otherwise. So I think it's great. I think it's great. You know what? I also wanted to. You were the first author for us that caused us to go global.
Oh.
So remember when you did Real Imagination? You did it, and you was like, you know what, Michelle? I've got an idea. I want to do it as a board book. You know, my baby Preston was just born then, right?
Right.
And you wanted something that he would be able to use, to be able to use, and kids that are smaller. And we had to find a printer outside of the country. I think it took us the books were on the water for a while coming across. But
yeah, we actually released the hardback book first, remember, because the board books were stuck on a ship, like coming from China.
Coming from China. Oh, and I hope we are not offending anybody, because we did use a manufacturer outside of the United States in order to produce it. But Areia, I have always loved your spirit and the essence of who you are, and it was always about pushing and doing more, being creative, being innovative, and I love that. I've always loved that about you. Love that about you. Every conversation we ever have, I always get off the phone with a smile.
Thank you so much. I can honestly say a lot of people are always shocked at how quick we were able to turn My Kind of Me around and get it out. Mm-hmm. And I told them, I said, from our very first conversation, we clicked. Like within the first few seconds, we clicked immediately, and it just worked. I said, and as we were continuing in the process, there were a couple times where we would go back and check the edits, because we were like, are these dates right? Did you really write it March 2012 and we're about to release it November 2012? Yeah. And one thing that was so great about that, when you mentioned Preston, you put My Kind of Me in my hands on November 15th, 2012, and that was the kickoff of a 4-day book tour in Kansas City, Missouri. Everyone kept asking me, what's coming next year? What's coming next year? Well, November 15th, 2013, 1 year to the date, my son Preston was born. Wow. So once he was born, I had people saying, well, does he get a book? Langston got a book. Preston needs a book. And so when we released Real Imagination, we released it in 2 parts, like you said, one in hardback for the older kids and one in board book, so that the younger kids could, still have the book and it not, the pages not get torn and ripped up.
Right.
And so it was great to do that. And, we went in and we put Preston on the cover and added him on a page throughout the book. And, it's an amazing thing for my boys, because they will tell people today, oh yeah, I have a book, and they love to, share the books at their school. And Preston even used the book in a photo shoot at his school. And then the teachers used it and made a poster out of some other young girls surrounded around the book. And it was a literacy poster, but they said, we're going to pick a book. What book do you want? And he was like, I want my book. And they're like, your book.
Awesome.
And he showed them the picture. He was like, see, that's me, and that's my brother. And he turned to the back and he said, and that's our mommy.
Oh, that is so awesome. That is so awesome. Areia, tell people again how they can connect with you. Give us the website.
AreiaCobb.com. That's AreiaCobb.com, and acbookstore.net. Go to either one of those and get to my website, and there are links on there to follow me on all social media pages.
Excellent. Areia, thank you so much for taking the time and visiting with me today. I am always delighted to talk to you. Everyone, I hope that you have enjoyed this time. Areia told us some great things about, expanding the book and being able to do more things with it. She's going into school. She's developed a program around bullying, self-efficacy, as well as peer advocacy. She's got some new things that we can expect to see and hear from her. Connect on the older things that are out there, the My Kind of Me, Real Imagination. Check her out. And Areia, we look forward to talking to you again soon, girl. God's got great things in store.
Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.
All right, you too. Bye, everybody.